Welcome to the Braver Women Show. I'm Leanne C. Jones, your straight-talking therapist and founder of Braver Women. I teach anxious LGBTQ plus women all over the world how to stop feeling insecure and start showing up courageously with more impact and power. Every episode is packed with proven, actionable strategies, lived experiences, and of course, my no-nonsense insights, so you can stop letting your emotions run the show and finally feel in control. And if you're tired of struggling with anxiety, self-doubt, unresolved trauma that's affecting your life and your relationships, or feeling like you're not enough, you don't have to figure it out alone. You'll hear real success stories from women in the Braver Breakthrough program, women who've gone from the anxious patterns of self-doubt to coming out and made life-changing shifts following their work with me. Everyone has the right to be their authentic self. It may be a hard journey to get there, but you need to keep going. That's what my most recent client, Gemma Christine, told me after coming through the other side of a lifelong battle with anxiety, self-doubt, and unresolved trauma. Today, I'm going to introduce you to a very courageous client of mine who is using some of the insights from breakthroughs she's experienced whilst working with me to inspire you to know that if you're struggling right now, it is possible to have a different experience within yourself to the one you have now. Gemma is a later in life gay woman from the south of England. She grew up in a conservative environment where being herself was frowned upon. From an early age, she felt a deep sense of emotional loneliness, not just from hiding who she was, but from a real lack of connection that she experienced during childhood. She didn't know how to relate to herself, how to process difficult emotions, or how to build any real sense of wholeness on the inside. And that left her craving love, searching for something to fill the gaps, and carrying deep, unresolved emotional wounds that led her straight into unhealthy relationships. She learned to keep the peace, to put others first, and to shrink herself just to feel wanted. And she did what was expected. She married, had children, built a straight life that looked good on the outside, but inside she was falling apart. By the time she came to see me, she was at a breaking point. She'd left her marriage, found herself at a crossroads, and was drowning under the weight of years of emotional pain. Fear dictated how she showed up in the world, in her relationships, and in her own mind. She tried counseling before, but nothing ever truly changed. And she knew she needed something different, something that would actually shift her responses to the deep survival patterns keeping her stuck. And that's exactly what she did. In this episode, Gemma is sharing the deeply personal story of how she changed her relationship with herself from the inside out. She'll take you through the monumental shifts she made since working with me, breaking free from old survival patterns, facing fear head on, and untangling the years of conditioning that told her that she wasn't enough. She's no longer paralyzed by self-doubt. She trusts herself. She's living with genuine confidence. She's making firm decisions and no longer sacrificing her own needs to make other people feel comfortable. And she's sharing this with you because she knows what it's like to feel trapped in your own head, questioning if change is even possible. If you've ever felt stuck in self-sabotaging cycles, if you've ever struggled with anxiety, if you've ever feared being truly seen, then this conversation is for you. Because here's the truth. You don't just wake up one day and become confident. You have to unlearn everything that told you you weren't enough in the first place. Now, I'm remarkably proud of all the clients that work with me who turn the page and go on to tell a different story once they've finished their therapy journey. And Gemma is no exception. This is a story that will not only move you, but I know so many of you out there will resonate with parts of this incredible woman's life. Only yesterday, when I advertised this episode in the Braver Women Facebook group, she courageously told our members that her long-term goal has always been to help others see that change is possible, no matter how hard life can be at times. and she can proudly say that she's finally doing this. I'm sure you'll agree by the end of this episode that making changes to live a life of authenticity and emotional freedom is entirely possible. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to an inspirational human being whose story will make you think deeply about what's possible for you. So, Gemma, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate you being here and taking the time to record this podcast and tell your story. I'm really excited for Braver Women to get to know you, but also for you to share your incredible journey that you've had since you started working with me. So I know you very well, but listeners listening to this, they're not going to know who you are. So just to start with, tell us who you are, where you're from, your age, how you identify, or any other interesting facts that you'd like us to know.
Okay, so I'm Gemma and I'm 48. I live in the south of the UK. I identify as gay and I have 4 children. My eldest is 17. Mm-hmm. My second is 16. My only son is 12 and my youngest daughter is 10.
Wow. So you've got your work cut out then.
Yeah, definitely. But I wouldn't change it for anything.
And what do you do, Gemma?
I'm an autism practitioner. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And soon I will be doing my teaching qualification to become a fully qualified teacher.
That's right. Yeah, and I can't wait to tell everybody the confidence and the journey that you've had to be able to do that. It's going to be incredible. I'm really looking forward to this. So I like to ask everybody this question because it gives everyone a taste and some relatability towards your journey so that they can resonate. What were you like as a child, Gemma? What was growing up like for you?
Okay. I was a shy child. I was quite reserved. My parents worked very hard. They did shift work, so they weren't necessarily around at the weekends or in the evenings. So it was me and my sister. My sister's 3 years older than I am. Mm-hmm. But everyone used to say that I was the older one because I was a lot more responsible than what she was when we were growing up. And still the same these days as well, actually. We're both extremely different. So my grandparents had a lot of input when it came to me and my sister. My dad struggled with his mental health and he did have bipolar, and that made things quite difficult in my household. It wasn't a normal upbringing to what my friends were experiencing. And I found myself just drawing to one person, my best friend, because that's the only friend that I felt I could trust. So a lot of my spare time, it was just me and her going off, getting on our bikes, going down to the beach, walking in the forest, because I grew up in the New Forest. And we just used to go out for days at a time and just forget about everything that was going on around us. And we just created our own little bubble of survival, basically.
Oh, your bubble of survival, yeah. And so that sounds tough. That sounds really tough. And I can relate to that as well, Gemma. My parents work shifts too, and that availability and that visibility and that emotional warmth and connection was often very stunted. I think back then my parents didn't have an awful lot of money, and so it was making ends meet at the expense of the connection that they had with me and my sisters. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, 100%. So
yeah. What kind of impact do you think that had on you as a kid? Like, what did you learn to internalize?
I had to be very independent. I didn't have my parents they weren't there to give me that reassurance that the decisions, the choices I was making were correct. And
Yeah.
so it was a very lonely experience. And it felt like I had to grow up extremely quickly.
Yeah.
And because of my dad's bipolar, my parents didn't have the best relationship between them either. There was lots of arguing going on in the household. So for me, that became part of my everyday norm. That's what just happened. And
Yeah.
I just had to stand in the background,
Yeah.
watching it happen, wanting that reassurance, but not getting that reassurance. And when you're only a little girl,
Mm-hmm.
that's very hard to understand.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, completely. Because children internalize, they absorb everything, don't they? They don't have that critical part of their brain that thinks, Jesus, you guys really need to do some work, or you need to sort yourselves out, or you need to give me some closeness, or you need to give me some warmth, or just show me, how to reassure myself, how to do that. It can be very hard as a kid to, to be exposed to all of that. Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of the time, I would spend, if I wasn't out with my best friend, I would spend it on my own.
Yeah.
I would spend it in my bedroom because that's where I felt safe. I was away from the loud voices, the arguments, and I could close myself off from it, basically.
Yeah. And we're going to come on to the impact that this child, this type of childhood had on you, as you went through your timeline from childhood to being a young adult and onwards. It can't not have that kind of impact that we're going to talk about. But so already feeling different, already feeling quite fragmented and just emotionally lonely, I think it's fair to say. What was it like when did you start to realize that you were gay? Like, what was that like? How did you come to that realization?
I started to realize that I was gay when I was a teenager, my early teenage years, during the time of hitting puberty, I guess. But because I didn't really understand different types of sexuality, because it just wasn't discussed when I was growing up, I just thought it was normal that girls had these feelings for other girls. That what I was feeling was exactly the same as any other girl was feeling. And so it wasn't until much later when I developed an understanding of the fact that, oh, actually, no, this is because you are gay, that I was able to understand a lot more.
So what led you to that? This is because you're gay? Because the only reason why I asked that, Gemma, is because I see it a lot, and I know that we've talked about it before, haven't we? There's a lot of women still trying to come to terms, women who come out later in life still trying to come to terms with, is this just a phase? Is this just a fantasy? Is this just an unmet need? What was it that sealed the deal for you and helped you conclude within yourself that I'm gay? This isn't just fancying somebody. This isn't just a puberty thing. This is something a lot more real within me. What would you say, looking back, would you recognise?
That I just couldn't ignore these feelings anymore. And that I did start to realise that this wasn't normal for everybody, because my friends would talk about having crushes on male celebrities or male teachers, and I wasn't experiencing that myself, and I was actually having crushes on female teachers. That's when differences started to make me think, actually, no, hold on a second. I'm not feeling like they are actually feeling as well.
I totally get that. I went to an all-girls Irish Catholic convent school. I think I tell everybody this. And so that conservative environment, high expectation for academia, and you're sat there in your own little world, eyeing up the teachers. The female teachers thinking, oh my God, if anyone finds out, that was my experience. I totally relate to what you say there.
Yeah, and so I couldn't tell anyone about it. I couldn't turn around and say, oh yeah, I have this crush on my female teacher, because they'd be like, what?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not right. That's not so-called normal.
Back then, yeah, that was very much the narrative, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So we've got you growing up in a really difficult environment, parents arguing and just having that fragmentation, and then you're not feeling like you connected really, and then growing up and then feeling like that double internalization of, I don't feel okay, I feel emotionally lonely, I feel different to my peers, and now I realize I'm gay.
And because it wasn't discussed in schools, it wasn't allowed to be promoted, sexuality wasn't allowed to be talked about.
Yeah.
Very occasionally you did hear your friends turn around and say, oh, so and so's gay. It was frowned upon.
Yeah.
It wasn't, if you heard someone mention the word gay, it wasn't a case of, right, okay, this is open discussion to be able to talk about things. It was like, right, let's run away as fast as I can, so no one labels me as gay and I'm the outsider here. I'm to be frowned upon because of the way I'm feeling.
Yeah, I think a lot of women, I think you're not too much older than me, like born in the 80s, grew up in the 90s. I think pre that, anyone behind us has also had that experience and that lasting impact of societal conditioning. It's deeply felt, and it's really hard to move away from when you have those feelings inside of you that somehow it's wrong, labeled as wrong,
And because where I grew up as well, it was a very quiet town, very conservative. Everyone was white. So it was expected of you just to grow up, get married to the opposite sex, and then have children and settle down. Because that's what every single person did. So why should you break that pattern of behavior?
Yeah. Well, you did, didn't you? You rebel. So let's talk about coming out, Gemma. What was that like? So talk to us, because you got kids, and so I know this story obviously, but for anyone listening, are you able just to join up the dots?
Okay.
For how you came out and how all of that came about.
Okay. Yeah. So even though as a teenager I was beginning to understand that I was gay, I still ended up following societal norms, and I got married to a man. That was a very unhealthy relationship. He was twice my age, and now looking back, I understand that I was looking for that father figure. And when I say it was an unhealthy relationship, I was abused in many different ways, including sexually assaulted by him. I was physically abused, and I was mentally abused. And we ended up moving to a different country for 2 years because I was taken away from my family and I was taken away from my friends. And I had to do everything he said, basically. I was told how I had to dress. I was told what I had to do, what I had to say, what I was allowed to eat, what I was allowed to drink. Then I managed to come back to the UK, and he followed me because I promised him that I would never leave him. But I wanted to come back to the UK because I wasn't happy living in a different country. And it wasn't until I came back to the UK and I started working full time and I met some new friends, and they sat me down and said, Gemma, this isn't right. This is so wrong in so many ways, and you have to get out. Which I successfully managed to do. It was very, very hard. And lots of things happened in between separating and finally becoming divorced and living 100% total lives. But I got through it and I survived. And I felt great that I'd managed to do that. And again, I knew, right, okay, this is my time. I can be me. I can start meeting same-sex people, start having relationships with the same sex. But on the other hand, because I'd experienced that trauma of growing up, and then I experienced the trauma of being in such an awful relationship, there was part of me that wanted to go back to being normal, wanting to settle down with a man and wanting to have children so no one else would be able to self-criticize me. Because I felt I was to blame for having that relationship with the person who abused me. I felt it was all my fault. And so I didn't want to be in that limelight. I didn't want to be in that spotlight of, oh yeah, she's making the same mistake again by coming out as being gay. I just wanted to get on and hide myself away, basically.
Oh, Gemma.
So I got married for the second time to a man, and he is the person I had my 4 children with. And at the time, that was the right thing for me to do. And as a result, we do both have 4 wonderful children. And like I said, I would never change that for anything. But I always knew that there was something missing. I always was looking for more and more and more. And I always wanted children, and I always wanted to have a lot of children. And so after my 4th child was born and she became a little bit older, I started to question, well, what's next? I have my children, I have my family home, I have my 2 dogs, I have my cats. What else is there that is missing in my life? And that's when I realized that I was living this lie. I knew that I was gay, and I didn't want to spend the second half of my life being someone I wasn't. I didn't want to just exist anymore. I wanted to start living. And so at the age of 44, that's when I spoke to my then husband about how I was feeling, about that I thought that I was gay. And we took it very slowly. And it wasn't until after another year that I came out officially as being gay.
I mean, I know your story, Gemma, and anyone listening to this, I know that it will jolt them on the inside. Just the strength that you've been through, what you've been through. The gravity of what you've been through to come through all of that and to still have the strength to turn the wheel again and do something completely different. It's incredibly brave, incredibly brave, and being able to connect the dots and how you were feeling and what's taken place inside of you since childhood to know what it was that pulled you into that abusive relationship, and just the way in which you're able to speak to it about that abuse now. And I think it's just a testament to how far you've come.
Definitely, because, it took me about 20 years before I could even actually start speaking to anybody about my first marriage.
Yeah.
It was a huge secret.
Yeah. Gemma, I am blown away the fact that you've had the courage to be able to say this, because I know that you are not on your own, and there's going to be so many women listening to this there'll be an outpouring of gratitude for you speaking so openly about something that you were exposed to, that you should never ever have been exposed to, something so tragic that had such a consequence on your mental health. I'm blown away, actually. I really admire your courage. I didn't think that you were going to talk about that, so thank you so much for just being so open. So if you're happy just to go back when you left your first marriage, all of that abuse, and you got out, you came back here to the UK, and I mean, you must have been an absolute mess. Thank God you had your friends to be able to help bring you to your senses, and then
I wouldn't have been able to have done it if it wasn't for my friends, because they were there watching my back all the time.
Yeah.
He would used to turn up to the place where I worked and would say, it's my right to see my wife. Phone all the time. And my friends were there just looking after me, saying, no, go away. Don't do this to her. She doesn't deserve this. And constantly reassuring me that I was doing the right thing.
And so the consequence of this childhood, just feeling emotionally lonely, emotionally empty, wanting love, and that it was that draw and that pull into quite an abusive relationship for you to come out to find, you know, a lovely partner, you know, father of your children. And so even realizing through all of that there was this deep-seated, what would you describe it as, something in the background? What was it for you? Just an overwhelming feeling? What was it?
I just knew there was something missing.
Yeah.
And then I thought, oh, it's okay, because, you know, when we first had my first child, we were living in a flat. And then it was like, oh, it's okay, because when we move into a house, that I will feel complete.
Yeah.
We moved into our first house, and it's like, nah, I still don't feel complete here.
Yeah.
Then we moved into a bigger house, had more children. It's like, nah, this isn't ticking all boxes. And then we moved into what we thought was our final home, nice big 5-bedroom family home. Couldn't ask for anything more.
Yeah.
Nah, that feeling's still there. There is something else not sitting right with me.
Yeah.
And like I said, I didn't want to live the rest of my life, my second half of my life. You know, I was 44. I didn't want to live that second half of my life.
Incredibly brave.
That I wasn't being my authentic self. And actually, even though it was very, very hard telling my children, coming out to my children, and the impact that was going to have on them, they were my inspiration, because I started to think, well, okay, I'm not being me. Do I want my children to be in the same situation? However hurtful it may be for them, because maybe, you know, what happens if they get into a situation where they get married and they know that person loves them to bits, but they're not happy? I want my children to have the confidence to turn around and say, no, I need to do what's right for me, whoever gets hurt in the process, because everyone has a right to be their authentic self, because life is a journey and we're constantly changing, and it's important that we follow our beliefs and our values and be who we generally are. That's, if this is the only lesson I've managed to teach my children, then I've done a good enough job.
You've done an incredible job, Gemma. What an inspiration you are to them. What an inspiration you are. And I mean, what did you, let's talk about when you started to become affected by what you recognize, the symptoms that you recognize were anxiety, weren't they? But it was only a flag waving at you going, hey, there's something much deeper going on here. Before you came to see me, what was going on inside of you, Gemma? Just talk to, in fact, there was a couple of times that you reached out, wasn't there?
There was.
Are you happy to talk about that?
Yeah. So the very first time I reached out to you, I was still living in the family home with my husband. I think I told him that I was gay, but it was a secret to everybody else. It took a lot of time for him to process things, and it took me a long time as well. So I only felt it was fair that I should give him that process time as well. And he was the very first person I told. And I wanted to ensure that that was the case. I didn't want to talk to anyone else. I didn't want to go off and even experiment, because I'd never, I knew I was gay without experiencing a gay lifestyle. And I was confident enough to speak to him about that. I wanted him to be my first person. So yeah, I reached out to you, and I was so worried that someone would overhear our conversation that I drove to the local common, and I had a conversation with you in my car, sat on my back seat, and I was a nervous wreck, and I was praying, and I was, Leanne, I don't know what to do. I need help. I can't even think past today, let alone tomorrow. And then I was all geared up and like, right, yeah, okay, I'm going to get therapy with Leanne. And then I had to move out of my family home. I had to find somewhere else to live, and I had nothing. And it was a case of, do I put food on the table for my children to feed them, or do I have therapy?
So that decision, obviously kids always, of course they're going to come first. Of course they are.
Yeah. So that's what I had to do. And I carried on watching all the recordings, listening to your posts, and actively following the group. And that really helped. And that also made the decision for me, in the fact that, right, I'm going to save up and I'm going to seek Leanne out again, because I know that you were the person that would be able to help me and support me. And I knew that from carrying on being an active member on the group, because I did actually have some counselling through work while I was waiting to save up the money, and it was rubbish. It was absolute shit.
Okay. Do you know, it's very sad, and I get very disappointed and actually quite sad when I hear that, because in fact, it was only the other day that I had somebody message me and say they've had terrible experience with therapy. Awful.
Yeah.
And it makes me sad that that's the experience that people who are vulnerable are receiving. Before we come on to that, I just want to, if it's okay by you, just to go back just a couple of steps, what was it that you needed help with, Gemma? Because I know that you're in this position where, you decided to change your life. You're carrying an awful lot of trauma, which, but by all accounts, I know that you'll know that you've said this to me, that it not registered. None of this had registered. The timeline, it was just you trying to muscle on through, feeling terrible and scared and all of that. But I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but I want you to talk to me, to tell me what was going on for you before you reached out to me. What was it that you were struggling with the most, that you thought, I need help with this?
So, yeah, I felt proud that I had come out.
Yeah.
And once I had come out, I felt like a huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders. And so I was kind of thinking, well, if this is the case, if this is what I was waiting for, I finally done it.
Yeah.
Why am I still having sensations of anxiety and self-doubt? And that was because I just didn't have any self-worth.
What were you noticing, Gemma? Like when you say anxiety and self-doubt, sometimes we say the same words, but we actually mean different things. So how did you experience anxiety and self-doubt? What was it stopping you from doing?
My worst was that I couldn't be on my own.
Okay.
I couldn't spend a night or an evening on my own. When I moved out of the family home, I had this diary And every single hour had to be filled in my diary of me meeting up with my friends, meeting up with family, because the thought of spending any time on my own was really, really scary for me, because I felt that if I was on my own, it was a consequence that no one loved me.
Yes.
It wasn't a case of, okay, I can be on my own and have some independent time and enjoy what I want doing. I didn't think that side of things. It was purely a fact that, well, if I'm on my own, it's because people don't love me, because I haven't got any self-worth, I'm not good enough, or I must have done something wrong in order for people not to want to spend that time with me. And I would get myself into an awful state.
Yeah.
I could not face coming back to my own home where I should have felt safe. It was just too hard for me to do, and I avoided it at every single cost. The only time I was here on my own through that period of time was late in the evening. When I would walk through the door, I would get showered, I would jump into bed, I would go to sleep, and then I'd wake up the next morning, get out of bed, get showered, and I'd be gone.
Yeah. And not surprising, now we know we've been through this journey together for a number of months, but the traumatized brain, all of that unresolved trauma, just sitting there, and all the internalized beliefs that you developed in childhood were now shaping how you thought about yourself, which then in turn shaped how you showed up in the world, and what you did and what you didn't do, and what you were scared of, and then what you did to overcompensate for that fear, like you've just explained.
And and talking to you and realizing and understanding so much, and also remembering past events, it all started to make sense of those reasons why I didn't want to be on my own. There were things that I'd blocked out of my own memory because they were too painful. But once we started talking about it and I started opening up, it was like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense as to why I am feeling like this.
So let's just go back a little bit. So you say to the point where you said you went to counselling.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, are you happy to talk about at that time when you went to the counselling before you came to see me?
Yes.
You weren't aware of any of what had gone on, not registered, and patchy memory and all of that just stuffed down inside of you like an iceberg, just that insidious iceberg within you.
Yeah.
So you went to counselling. What was that like, Gemma? What was the experience?
Yeah. So none of that was raised because I was unaware of that was having the huge impact. So when I went to counselling, it was very much based on, okay, so how are you feeling in this present moment of time? Well, I'm feeling like this. Okay, so let's find ways to enable you to cope with how you were feeling.
Right.
And so it was like, it's like putting that plaster on the wound.
Yeah.
But that plaster's never going to fix the wound. And so then when you pull that plaster off, it's still going to be there. It's a small fix for a very small period of time, but it's not resolving all the underlying issues that are there. And it wasn't until I came and started having therapy with you, and you helped me to understand we have to go back, we have to unpick why you are feeling the way you are feeling, and this is a result of XYZ, that I started to understand that this is how therapy should be. And all this quick, easy fix of, oh, okay, well, yeah, you're feeling sad today. Well, how can you overcome yourself feeling sad? Go out for a walk, go and do this. Well, that's not going to resolve the issues I was experiencing, I was going through. Okay.
Okay, so let's talk about your journey with me then. And so we know what's led you up to coming to me. So you went to counselling. Having had that experience in counselling, Gemma, and really just not getting on with it, just not feeling it was effective or going to help you, why then did you reach out to me? What was it?
Because listening, going on Facebook at your comments, the posts that you were putting on, I knew instantly that they were very, very different to the approach that I had through the counselling. I could relate to it. And watching other people's stories and thinking, yeah, this person has overcome this, doing this. It's like, well, I can do that as well.
That's right. And people don't believe me until they come and work with me when I say that what I do, it isn't delivered anywhere in the world in the way that I do it. Is it fair to, would you agree with that?
100% agree with that. I really, really do. It's so bespoke. It's so different.
So I think for me, good therapy is as much about teaching as it is about treating and healing. What do you think about that statement?
Yeah, definitely. And you have to put in the work. You weren't there to do that for me. You were there to guide me, to coach me. But it was down to me at the end of the day. But you gave me that support and that encouragement and kept me going when I was like, no, I can't do this anymore. Like, you didn't hear from me from one day. And you're like, hey, Gemma, you okay? And I'm like, yeah, this is a little bit hard today. You're like, don't give up. You can't give up. And if I give up on you, then that's not a good role model.
Well, I think more than anything, I think what happens is clients come and they think they're going to sit in front of a therapist and offload. And then they're going to go away and then come back and do the same thing next week. And that's not going to work. That's not going to work. I think what you were missing was a level of self-trust and emotional safety on the inside. You had no certainty on the inside, no self-trust, no consistency, didn't know how to connect or relate to yourself. And that contributed to the, I'm scared of being on, I don't know how to, oh my God, the world feels very unsafe. Not just inside of me, but outside of me as well.
Yeah, I didn't believe in myself. No self-belief in myself at all. And I just constantly wanted that reassurance from other people. And I just depended upon other people to make the decisions for me.
What was that like for you? How did that feel in the long term, just doing that?
Well, in the long term, then I realized that actually, hold on a second, I'm not being me because I'm being ruled by other people, other people's decisions. And then when it came to me having time by myself, I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know how to make myself happy. If the people around me were happy, then I was happy. Yeah. But it also had a knock-on effect, because if the people around me were sad, angry, upset, I would just do the same. So I was dependent upon their emotion. I wasn't being independent for myself.
Yeah. And that's the thing. And I think that we're not going to talk about the techniques. I say this in every episode because it's not fair for people who've come to me and, worked with me. But so coming to see me, and when I say work with me every day solidly, until you're okay. Knowing that you're going to come to me and I'm not going to finish on the clock and say, oh, your hour's up. It was never like that, was it? It was tough.
Really tough. Absolutely exhausting at times, but totally understood, totally got it as to why that approach was necessary.
Yeah. Tell me why.
Why?
Yeah.
Otherwise, I wouldn't be where I am now. If I'd have just had therapy sessions with you once a week and it was so, oh yeah, start at 7:30, we're going to finish at 9:00, We would have I would have never have been able to truly open up to you. You wouldn't have seen everything I needed to get out, everything I needed to show you. Because also, you know, like we said, when I first started the therapy with you as well, there was so much that we uncovered that I didn't think you even needed to know about.
That's very true, isn't it?
It got it out of me. And I was like, oh, yeah.
Well, I mean, the fact that you were able to come and say, Leanne, I have never, ever, ever told anybody this in my life.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, isn't it, that the fact that there was so much hidden, but you didn't realise it was relevant either.
No, that's right. Yeah, because I just thought, oh, okay, that's done and dusted. Yeah, it was absolute shit, but it's gone. It's in the past. This isn't who I am. That hasn't had any effect on me. Well, it had a major effect on me. Absolute major effect on me. It was like, no, just brush it under the carpet, and then everything will be fine. Out of sight, out of mind.
And actually, out of sight, out of mind is what happens. But trauma lives in the body and the nervous system.
Yeah.
What would you say about that?
It really, really does. My past trauma has affected me for many, many years, and I was living as a cause of my past trauma without even realizing. And it's not until now that we've unraveled it all that I can understand the way my behavior has developed as a consequence, where all those insecurities have come from.
Yeah. So, Gemma, tell us, what did you start to notice? What did you start to, what changed, and how quickly did you start to notice the approach that I have? It's very different. It's not an easy ride.
No.
But what did you notice started to feel different?
I started to notice very early on. My second session, actually, with you, I started to notice changes, because you have a very direct approach. There's no wishy-washy stuff there, but you're also very, very supportive. And I could see that instantly. And very early on, I was able to see, oh yeah, I am struggling with my self-worth, my self-confidence. I haven't got that voice. I haven't got a voice to speak up for myself. But being able to understand that, to see that, and wanting to change, wanting to become someone who does have self-worth, wanting to become someone who is able to use their voice, who is someone who is able to spend time on their own independently. I could see that you were going to help me work past all of that. And even though it was going to be really, really hard work, and I had to put in that effort, I also had that support behind me from you, helping me and guiding me. And I wouldn't have been able to have done that on my own. I just wouldn't have been able to have done it, because there was just too much trauma there.
And I think one of the things that I pride myself on, and I know that everybody finds this so helpful, it's, I know how I feel, but how do I change it? I give you the how to respond. So when you're having thoughts, when you're having reactions, you know what to do, and you had that every single day, that repetition every single day, and speaking to me every single day for, well, it's been about 6 months now, hasn't it? And what was that like for you, knowing that you were being monitored, you were being cared for and overseen every day? There was accountability there. There was structure. You knew exactly what you needed to do whenever certain patterns came in that were unique to you. You knew exactly how to keep responding to them. What started to change? What's just talk to us about that journey, and so we know where you were and all of that instability, all of that fear on the inside, all of that just not knowing what to do with yourself, to where you are now. What would you say?
Well, I knew that having to be in contact with you every single day, I couldn't give up.
Yeah.
And that was a thing, you know, when I was at my very, very worst before I started having therapy, I did just want to give up. And I went through a stage of not wanting to be here because I thought my children would be better off without me. I really did. I got that low that I thought my existence didn't mean anything to them. So being in contact with you every single day, even if I was having one of those days where I was like, gosh, this is too much now. I can't keep doing this. Because I also had you there supporting me. I didn't feel so alone because I knew that my responses from you were going to put me back in that right frame of mind to keep going, to keep pulling through. And, you know, I've done that now, and I am so different inside to how I was when I first started my journey. And that is evident with my friends, my family, my work colleagues. And I'm not going to say every day is full of sunshine and roses, because it's not. And there are still days when I find it extremely hard. But I know that that's normal, because what I'm experiencing, their emotions, and everyone has emotions, everyone has feelings, and there's always going to be something that's going to occur in life. You know, you feel like, oh, I've just got over another mountain, and then another mountain, even bigger, appears. But it's how to deal with it, knowing the fact that I can deal with it, and I'm not going to be that what if, maybe person, because I'm going to have certainty of how to move past.
So I think in short, what we're saying is that you now feel like you've got your own handrail on the inside. You've got your own sense of certainty. You've got your own shock absorbers. You understand that it's impossible on an emotional level to have 365 days of sunshine a year on the inside. Not possible. Not even the weather forecast is like that. The emotions will come in, but not being so frightened of them.
So if I do have a wobble, and I have had wobbles, I'm not going to deny that.
Yeah.
I can pick myself up, and I know how to move on. I know how to deal with it and move past it.
And so looking back on the trauma that you have experienced, rather than self-blame and self-criticism and all of that.
Wasn't my fault.
Say that one more time.
It wasn't my fault.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
That's right.
I was doing what I knew at the time.
Yeah.
I didn't know any different.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's just incredible, Gemma, just to hear you talk like this. You know, I know the just monumental just seems like a minuscule word to say. I don't feel there's enough words to describe the journey that you've been on. You have worked so hard every single day, being in touch, those voice notes, the guidance, the coaching, you coming back to me, like sometimes 2 or 3 voice notes, and just being able just to get you, level you out, and just, you know, give you that handrail. And so we take the stabilizers off, and you're doing it for yourself, because you followed a pattern. That's all we've done, is followed a pattern.
Yeah.
Tell me what your friends and your family and your kids have noticed. Talk to me about what's new, what's improved, what's changed.
So my friends noticed quite early on, and they were, Gemma, you've got so much stuff still going on in your life at the moment. For example, I'm happy to say it on here, but I'm renting at the moment, and my landlord is due to sell the property sometime soon. And for the last year, I've been trying to find a new place to live, but I'm a single parent with 4 children. Rental demand is huge in the area I live in, and as soon as they go on the market, they go again. And before that used to really stress me out. It's like, oh my God, where am I going to end up living? And my friends are like, Jimmy, you don't talk about that anymore. Why is that? And it's like, because, yeah, I do have to have a plan in place, but I can't let it affect me all the time. And I'm just going to deal with it when I have to, because I don't know what's around the corner. My landlord hasn't put this place on the market yet. And it's funny because when I moved out of the family home, I was in a very similar situation then, and then all of a sudden this place became available. And so, yeah, my friends are very much, well, you have a lot more confidence, you're not worrying about so much anymore, and you are making decisions for yourself. And they're also, yeah, and we can see that you are spending time now on your own, because they knew that I couldn't spend time on my own.
Yeah.
And they're like, Gemma, it's so nice that you have spent an evening by yourself and you've done what you wanted. And they were, because they used to tell me that's so important. That's so important you do that. And I was like, no, I can't see it. Don't believe you.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're like, oh my gosh, you have come so, so far. Mm-hmm. And like my work colleagues at work as well, they can see a change in me. I have more confidence in making decisions. I don't take stuff from people if it's not correct. I ensure that I'm treated just the same as everyone else in my workplace. And because I'm projecting myself with more confidence, people aren't treating me like shit anymore.
Yeah.
They can't walk all over me. They don't see this easy, vulnerable person who they can go, oh, okay, she's going to be my next person I'm going to have a go at because she's the easy target. I'm not that easy target anymore.
Yeah. So what about your kids? Like, how are things how are things now with your kids?
Yeah. So it was a real tough time for my children when I came out as being gay and me and their dad separated. We co-parent, so I have my children 50% of the time. Mm-hmm. And at the very beginning, they would turn their location off on their phone. They wouldn't tell their friends that me and their dad had separated, let alone the fact that I was gay. And they just didn't want, this is my older children, it's not my younger ones, it was my older ones. They just didn't want to accept anything that happened. And as a consequence, that did affect my relationship with them, because then I was trying to compensate. And if they did something wrong, I would just let it go. So there was no discipline in my household. But that's different now. And my relationship with my eldest daughter has totally changed. We have a really good relationship now. Mm-hmm. She understands, I understand her a lot more, because again, it's not all that self-blame. I was like, oh yeah, my children don't love me because I've come out as being gay and I've separated the family unit. That's not the case at all. And as a consequence, my children's behaviour is a lot better as well, because I'm more relaxed and therefore they're more relaxed too.
Yeah. So you believe in yourself. You have a much greater degree of self-esteem, and consequently, like you say, that's changed how you show up as a mum. And I'm
starting seeing them be themselves again. They're not just coming here and shying away and not wanting to talk. I mean, typical teenagers, they're going to do the typical teenage thing. Teenagers do. But I'm beginning to see their own unique personalities start shining through again. And that was lost at the start.
Yeah. So tell me, that's absolutely incredible, Gemma. It really is. Because obviously I'm not going to share everything, but I know how fractured that was and how upset you were and how underconfident you were with your skills as a parent compared to now. What an absolute turnaround. And what a joy for them to experience their mum just being relaxed and knowing you each know where you stand. They know where they stand with you. You know where you stand with them. Incredible.
Yeah. It's made a difference. There's lots less tension.
Yeah.
Now. Yeah.
What do you believe about yourself now, truly, hand on heart, that you can say with so much confidence about yourself now that you have never, ever been able to say about yourself?
That I do have self-worth. I am important. That I do deserve a place on this planet, just like everybody else. That I do believe in myself. That I have that voice and I can use my voice appropriately. And
just hearing you, keep going. This is music to my ears.
The fact that I didn't actually want to be here anymore, so I hated myself, and now the fact that I can say, well, actually, I do love myself. I'm a decent person. I'm genuine. I'm honest. What is there to dislike about me? Come on. Now that takes a load of confidence to be able to say that.
It really does. It really does, because you're not proving anymore, are you? You're simply expressing yourself. Yeah. You just know that you exist purely by the fact that you exist.
Yeah. And I have every right to exist.
Yeah. I'm so proud of you. I really, really am. And I want to ask you, just as we just draw to a conclusion now, just to start to wrap this incredible chat up. If you were to go into the Braver Women community, or were to talk to any other gay woman who found themselves in a similar situation to you, because there's going to be a lot of women who can relate to the difficult childhood and everything that you've had to experience. What would you say to them if they were absolutely stuck in a rut and buried, unaware in deep trauma the way that you were? What advice would you give them?
You need to trust yourself. You need to believe in yourself. Listen to what you're being told within yourself, following logical, rational thoughts. Don't base it just purely on that emotion of you feeling not good enough. Really listen to your own inner self and get that help and support you need, because you deserve it.
Wise words, really wise words, coming from somebody who's out on the other side. And that's the thing, isn't it? When you're in it and somebody's telling you something, you don't believe it at a logical level. There's got to be a shift in the nervous system. There's got to be a shift in the way you experience yourself to be able to get out onto the other side, to be able to say that.
Everyone has the right to be their authentic self, because you only have one life, and it may be a very hard journey to get to that other side, but you need to keep going. You really do, because I could have given up. If I'd have taken the easy option, I wouldn't be here now. But I chose to fight it, and I chose to do something about it, because I knew deep down, when I was being logical, when I was being rational, I knew deep down that I didn't want to go. Not really. Yeah.
And so I suppose if you could just sum up, because I know a lot of people, I get messages all the time about people wanting to work with me, and I don't take everybody on. There's got to be a commitment to the process, because what I do is very different. Women have got to be ready for it. But if you were to sum up the experience that you had with me and Braver Women, What would you say? How would you describe it? What kind of things would you want to put across?
But it's been an incredible journey. And I will always be forever grateful for the work that we have done together. But yeah, you do have to put in that hard work to get those results. And I had to trust you, because if I hadn't have put my trust into you, and that's something I found extremely hard to do, was to put trust into people. If I hadn't have done that, then I wouldn't have the results I have now.
Yeah. What do you think enabled you to feel that trust, Gemma? What do you think it was?
The support you gave me, and the fact that your response was based on logic, on facts. And so there was no mucking around with you. I knew what you said was very truthful. And so even though I am someone who found it hard to put trust, I was able to do that with you because I felt safe. And I knew that when you agreed to work with me, I knew that as long as I put in the hard work, you wouldn't just abandon me halfway through. I knew that you would continue to keep going and going and going until I got to where I am now.
And that's the promise I made you, and that's the promise I kept. Yeah. And I'm just so proud of you that you are sat here telling your story to inspire and help other queer women who are going to be able to relate to the experiences that you've had that have led you here, Gemma. It's been one hell of a journey, and just seeing you sat here carefree, relaxed, confident and easy compared to the woman that was sat in the back seat of her car in an abandoned car park crying her eyes out when you first reached out to me is just remarkable, and an absolute testament to just the work that you've put in, the trust that you've had in this process, and the ability to overcome and be brave and unravel some of those really deep-seated layers inside of you that you've been allowed to let go, so you can breathe a bit easier and just experience a wonderful relationship with yourself. Because that's the most important thing before you're able to give yourself and express yourself to the world. You've got to feel safe on the inside, haven't you?
100%.
Yeah. Okay. So just before we wrap this up, is there any words of wisdom that you would like to share with anybody sat on the sidelines wondering whether to reach out and work with me?
Stop wondering. Go ahead and do it. Because there's going to be no regrets. Absolutely no regrets. Well, the only regret is if you don't do anything about it. So there you go. Reach out. And
that's really good to know. Thanks, Gemma. But in all seriousness, I just want to say to you, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you so much for being so brave. Thank you for sharing some of the most intimate parts of your life with other women to inspire them to make changes, but also choosing me as your guide, as your mentor, as your therapist, to be able to help you just overcome and be able to walk free and enjoy the rest of your life, and just have an incredible experience from now till forever. Just so proud of you, Gemma. I really am. So I really want you to stay in the group. I'd love you to stay in the group and encourage other members. You know that you'll be able to have access to the client support community for as long as you want. And I can't wait for other people to hear this story. Are you happy for other women to reach out to you? Are you happy for that to happen?
yeah, any way I can help. And that's why, you know, we're doing this podcast, because it's important that other women know that they're not on their own. And even if my story reaches out just one person and helps make just one person change their life for the better, then this is a success. This has all been worth doing this talk with you now.
Gemma, it really has, and I'm absolutely more than confident that somebody listening to this will deeply resonate with your journey. I really am so confident of that, and I think that this is what Braver Women is all about. It's when you tell a different story, it's because you've turned a new page with your life. You're no longer telling the old story. You've moved away from that, and you're seeing yourself from a more realistic perspective. And you know, shame dissolves when stories are told in safe places. That's the thing. Just hearing your story today, it's just being so open about it. It's going to help somebody. I absolutely know it. Thank you so much, Gemma.
Thank you.